Hello and welcome to DesignChat, the best live design discussion on the internet. I'm your host, Ryan McGovern. On Twitter, I'm at Hoobajoob and at DesignChat. Every week, we bring some of the coolest people in the design community to you so we can have a one-on-one exchange and grow the design community and break down corporate and competitive barriers and just unite. So, golf clap, Debbie Millman, thank you so much for coming out tonight. It is very exciting to be talking to you right now.
So, could everybody that's online see us, or is it just a feed that you can listen to, or can you like get the whole full Monty kind of thing?
Anyone who accesses this URL can get the whole experience.
Excellent.
And we screen capture it so that it lives on as a podcast afterwards, and it's available for download for free on iTunes and on Mevio. So it's got sort of a long tail and a long existence after we have this. So it's kind of fun. It turns into like a documented, sort of conversation because it's so often, it's every week. We hit on current events, we hit on what's going on in technology that affects our lives so much. And so far it's been a year that we're doing this, and it's been a lot of fun. We're showing no signs of stopping. There's definitely no shortage of interesting people to talk to. So it's very exciting.
That's great. Well, congratulations. This is a great thing you're doing.
Thank you very much. So if there happens to be, I always start it off this way, if there happens to be any young, naive designers in the room who are not familiar with Debbie Millman and her great design experience, why don't you just give a real brief kind of where you came from, how you got into design, and, how you started to get to where you're at today.
Okay. Real brief. It's hard for me to do brief. I'm not a brief
Don't do brief.
Person.
Then we got an hour.
How did I get started? I got started in this business in 1983, and I graduated college, and I moved to Manhattan. I had lived in Albany when I went to school. Before that, I lived on Long Island, and before that, I lived in Queens and in Brooklyn and Staten Island. So I've lived in all the boroughs except the Bronx now in my long life. And I graduated and decided that I wanted to try to get a job working at a magazine, and of course that meant Condé Nast, but didn't get a job at Condé Nast. They didn't even acknowledge me at Condé Nast, barely anyway. In any case, I got a job working for $6 an hour doing paste up and layout at a cable magazine, and that's where it all began.
And so right now you are. Say again?
I said, and now I'm here.
And now you're here. Exactly. And so
you said brief.
Now you also, in addition to being here, right, you are the National AIGA president, coming up on 1 year now, I think next month, right?
Yes.
And also a partner at Sterling Brands, an international branding agency out of New York.
Yes.
You've written 2 books, 2 great design books, and been involved in countless other activities for the 3. Ooh. See, got to do better research. It's my research group that's just not, they're failing me right now. They're fired,
I know,
actually.
I hear you. You should get my research group. They're good.
I would love to have your research group. I will hire them in as soon as I get advertising. But okay, so hitting on all that, we just mentioned you've been the AIGA president for about a year. I just went back and watched the first sort of speech that you gave as the AIGA president. And
yes.
One of the things you started to talk about was your legacy, what you wanted to be known for, what you wanted the tenure of your presidency to sort of represent. And
yes.
You said the word connectivity, which I am very excited about because that's a big deal in what we're doing here. That's one of the biggest motivational reasons that we started DesignChat. So why don't you talk about where you thought it was going at that point and where you are after 1 year?
Well, just to give people some background, because I'm not entirely sure that everybody has seen that video that you're referring to, and basically last year when I took over as president, I gave some opening remarks to the AIGA leadership. So that is all the presidents and board members of all of the local chapters all over the country. And in my greetings, what I talked about was how difficult it had been for me to get involved with AIGA over the last, 15 or so years, and how many times I felt very excluded and essentially disregarded. And I don't think that that was something that was unique to me. I think that over the years, unless you were a very specific kind of designer with a very specific kind of practice and a very specific kind of message, that it was hard to break through, because there were a lot of really like-minded people doing like-minded things. And I felt that if I felt that way, then maybe other people felt that way too. But I also had a deep love and respect for the organization and for the type of work that the designers in the organization were doing. And I really wanted to be part of it. I wanted to be part of something larger than myself, larger than my practice. I wanted to be around people that I admired and respected and wanted to learn from. And so despite many times, many more than I even want to remember, sort of being kicked to the curb, I kept trying to have some sort of meaningful connection within AIGA. And a lot of that was because of the encouragement of Rick Raffay, who is the executive director of AIGA. He was one person who was very welcoming to me and really encouraged me to be persistent and keep trying, and made a lot of efforts to help me in that regard. And so I ended up, after being voted off of a brand experience board, which was a special interest group within AIGA in, I think, 2001 or thereabouts, I then got re-involved through the New York chapter, and then ended up working through the New York chapter and then on the national board. And then a little over a year ago, Sean Adams asked if I would be interested in assuming the leadership position as president. And so because of my own experiences of feeling rejected and of feeling completely on the fringe, and that my particular practice discipline wasn't respected, I decided that anybody that's interested in being part of AIGA, any type of designer, whether it be print, web, motion graphics, branding, industrial, anything, anybody that loves design should be able to feel welcome to this organization that really has so much to give. And so one of my motivations over the last year has been to reach out to people that might be feeling that they were disregarded or excluded, and bring them into the organization, to spend a lot of time talking to students about what the possibilities are for their participation, so that they feel heard, so that they feel like they can have an impact and make a difference, and then try to connect with as many people as I can within the AIGA community to bring a more connective spirit to the organization. There are 60 chapters within AIGA, and what I found is, just from my own visiting of the chapters, and it is my goal by the end of my tenure as president to have visited all the chapters, is that the energy and the spirit and the engagement that the local chapters have is phenomenal. It's breathtaking. It's so inspirational and it's actually so powerful that I think I'm a little addicted to it at this point. Like, I like to be with the chapters because I feel that that's really where all the energy of AIGA is. And I think that previously the organization had been very top down, and now what we're trying to do is make it bottom up. So it's not about the national leadership running the organization. It's about the national leadership supporting the organization and providing the right type of inspiration and the right type of professional development and connectivity for all of the members within AIGA. So I'm trying to shift the energy a little bit within the organization and create a more inclusive, connective organization that provides more to the membership just by the sheer virtue of being a member. Does that make sense?
Completely. And, it's the perfect time to have this sort of initiative because we have all of these new sort of free tools, and I preach this a lot, where we can have the bottom-up connectivity because now everybody has their own voice. If they want to get on a video chat and start broadcasting like I did, they can. And
and that's what I did too. Same thing. Design Matters was all just about my wanting to talk to the people that I admired and wanted to know more about and felt like there was no forum to do that. And so an environment like you are providing now is exactly what the organization should be doing. It should be open and inclusive and inspiring to anybody that wants to be open and inclusive and inspired.
Right. And I got to say, of course, as you can tell, Design Matters was a huge influence in my deciding to take this on because I was a fan. I am a fan. I still download and look for any new episode that happens to be coming out, like it's audio crack, and I have to have it, and I listen to them multiple times, and I go back, and then I hear something that I didn't notice the first time. And one of the points I make a lot about doing this is that in addition to being content creators and designers and creators of things and artifacts, we're also design consumers. We buy print magazine, we buy arts, we subscribe to blogs, we absorb as much as we can. And this is just another way to put something out there that people are going to enjoy and hopefully get something out of, because it's definitely not all about me. It's all about the community and all the people that are involved in it. Because Debbie, I've had some of the worst design jobs on the planet. The worst ones, literally. Bottom of the barrel, shoot yourself in the head, I want to get out of here, help, please, someone help kind of jobs.
Tell us about one. Tell us about one.
First job out of school was the biggest mistake that I've ever made. I was too anxious to take a job, so I took the first one that came to me and was promised by a creative director that we would be doing very creative type of things and kind of went along with the visual communication program and foundation that I had, but really was sort of tricked that it was more of a production job where I would be cranking out literally hundreds of point-of-purchase signs a day for bookstores and Home Depots and really sort of shut your brain off and just crank out junk kind of job. And I was there for a year and really just wanted to hang myself, but was young and stupid and moved to the city and was paying too much for an apartment and spending too much on going out in the weekends, so I needed to support my social life, so I stayed much longer than I should have. And I think over time it did more damage than good. But you got to look at it both ways because you can learn something from any situation, right? You can pull something out and really understand what that was. And I got to learn more about production and difficult workflows and timing and all of that. So I say it was the worst thing ever, but I did get something out of it.
Well, I know how you feel. There were times that I was doing jobs that I didn't even know why the job existed, let alone why I was doing the job.
That's not good. Just like you were questioning why anyone would create something like that. How bad was it?
Used furniture catalog.
Ouch. Ouch.
Yeah. And I did that when I did that. This was, it's always so hard for me to talk about, back in the day, because it really is something that I never ever thought I would hear myself say. But that being said, back in the day, I was doing a lot of paste up and layout at that time, and typesetting was something you sent out for. So you spec type and you sent out for type at the typesetters, and it would come back, and you'd hope and pray that the type that you spec'd would actually fit and look right. But it was also very, very expensive. And so I had so severely underestimated what the price should be for this used furniture catalog, that I didn't have enough money in that, even in the whole budget wasn't enough to pay for even half the typesetting that I needed for this catalog. So I tried to lecture set all of the copy in a catalog. That was a scary, scary time.
Oh my goodness, I couldn't even imagine. When I was a kid, my late uncle was a creative director and designer and went through the same design program I did. So all of my toys growing up that he would always give me were, paints and rub on letters and that sort of thing,
Yeah.
and different Bezier curves and all that. So I grew up with those as like my playthings. And every time, I start a new job or I meet some new people who have worked in the industry and that sort of thing, I love hearing those stories about why we do what we do today because of the tools and technology that were used before. And that's a current topic that comes up a lot because the technology changes so fast that if you don't keep up with it, you can't do your job. And it also heavily influences, design and just how it looks and how we communicate and all that. But so one of my friends, actually, he's an old professor of mine from NIU, Andrew Byram, who's going to be on the show soon, wrote something recently that I think he's sort of onto something, that the technology sort of caught up to the limitations of what we can produce. So the design is going to slowly stop being influenced directly by the technology and allow us to communicate in any way we want and really not be able to tell how it was made.
I think that's interesting. I mean, I can't imagine that really involved designers would not be able to sense the source of creating, or the source of the creator, how it was created. Like anybody that's truly interested in fashion would know how a garment is made, and whether it's made by hand or whether it's mass-produced. And the same thing for somebody that's really interested in painting. They would understand how something was created. I think that if anybody's really, really interested in design and is witnessing how design is created while they're creating it or while others are creating it, might very well be able to sense the source. I would hope so. I'd hate to think that there's no way of being able to see the roots of an idea or the roots of a design.
I guess I was referring specifically to the technological background of how it was created, whether it was made by hand first or then put into Photoshop, or, the really sort of 3D kind of creation of it.
Yeah. There's a lot of sort of fooling around.
So I read something really interesting today. It was an article in Business Week, or it came out yesterday, really, and it was entitled "What Executives Really Want." Okay, and what it's talking about is, given the the really bad economic times that we're dealing with, top executives at Fortune 500 companies are changing their ideas about who they're looking for in the workforce and the ideas that create and drive business. And the top thing that they're saying CEOs want now is creativity, different ways of connecting the dots and being able to solve a problem not by following the stereotypical rules. And I think it's a very sort of poignant time to be talking about that for designers, because that's a huge opportunity for us. What are your thoughts on that?
So what are my thoughts on the fact that marketing executives are interested in creativity?
And that they're realizing that's something they need to continue their business, and what that means for designers and how they need to react to that.
Well, I'm not entirely sure that that's really anything new. I think that in the last 10 years, you've seen, with the growth of magazines like Wired and Fast Company, the emphasis that creative plays in these forums, because I think that marketers have realized that creative is another way in which to differentiate a product. And so it's not really a matter of a different form or a different flavor or a different color. but really how is this product going to make a difference in my life? And once we can, and the way that we can create differentiation in somebody's life is through design ideas and design solutions. And so I think that in many ways it's not as altruistic as it sounds, because it's just another way for marketers to increase their profits. And so if they're utilizing design because they see that design is allowing for a more competitive result, then I think that, of course, they're interested in that. What's good for designers is because suddenly there's an acknowledgement of the impact that design can have on the profit margin, then, of course, there's going to be more interest and more jobs. That being said, I think that because we are now given these opportunities, because we are being given the seat at the table, we talk about the seat at the table, but we don't really talk very much about what happens once you're seated at the table. And so once you're seated at the table, then what? And I think that what we have to be able to contribute, what we have to be able to lead the charge on, is creating design that is meaningful, that is sustainable, that does create a better life, not just a differentiated life, and not just a product that's differentiated, and not just a product that's more noticed, but a product that is going to increase the value of a life, if at all possible. Now, that's lofty, but one needs to have goals.
That's a great place to start. Yeah, no doubt. Because, in the designer's role, I would imagine so much of that time is spent thinking about having that seat, because you are always struggling for influence. If you're at an in-house group and the relationship between the creative in-house group is not going well with the business groups, you're struggling to get any sort of voice whatsoever. So I have sat in that chair wondering, how do I get my message across? And it's a very exciting thing to see, even though it means, specifically because we're dealing in these bad economic times and CEOs and leadership are looking for, how can I right this ship? How can we keep this company afloat? It's very exciting to see that it's being acknowledged.
I think that the mistake that designers make is that they expect that if they are producing really great creative, if they're creating what they consider to be breakthrough ideas, that somehow that gives us some sort of pass to the front of the line, and that is something that just by the sheer virtue of something being excellent design, that should enable us to be able to get that produced and to make that happen. Well, the fact of the matter is, most of the people that hire us to do design work for them have absolutely no training in design. They haven't been to design school. They don't understand color theory. They don't know how to set type. They don't even know maybe they know Helvetica, maybe. Whatever fonts they know are because they came with their computers. And they are the ones evaluating the design that we're telling them is good. They have no training in being able to assess whether or not that design is actually good. They're making that determination based on their own subjective point of view. And all points of view, for the most part, are subjective. We don't really, other than maybe some math and some science, there's very little that's actually 100% empirically true. So here we have a situation where a designer create something utilizing their incredible design skills, their massive talent and intellect, and they're showing it to somebody that has absolutely no education in assessing it. And we, the designer, expect that the client that we're showing it to is going to be able to say and recognize how amazing what we're showing them is and buy it lock, stock, and barrel. And what I often say to designers thinking about that, or assuming that that's going to happen just by the sheer gorgeousness of their work and their portfolio, is, have you ever been in a museum, and in the museum you see a Jackson Pollock? And maybe you, as somebody that's educated in art and design, sees the Jackson Pollock for the magnificence of its it's point of view. It's furthering the trajectory of design. It's breaking open new barriers for artists. And then as you're standing there admiring it, somebody comes up and is with their friend or sibling or spouse and says, I know somebody 5 years old that could do that. And you kind of think to yourself, oh my God, people really do think that. And so if we can't, as a culture, as humanity, have an agreement on what makes a great painting that's already in a museum great, universally, why do we think that just because somebody has given us an award or somebody has hired us to do a job, that they're going to be able to see what is good in the same way that we see what is good? And the fact of the matter is, if your client doesn't like what you're showing them, no matter how much you try to explain to them why they are wrong and what they're looking at is actually really good, the less likely you are ever getting them to believe it. Because people want to believe what they believe. Period. End of story. You go into a department store, you try something on, you know you look fat in it, you look in the mirror, the salesperson comes up to you and tells you how amazing you look. You're not going to change your opinion about the fact that you think you look fat. So that's a department store. You can walk out of the department store, you don't have to worry about whether or not you're going to buy the dress or not. If a designer is being hired by a client and the client is not getting it, they're not seeing it, we can have our inner eye roll. We can think that the client is an idiot. They just don't get it. They somehow are just void of any design knowledge. And the fact of the matter is they just don't understand what we've put in front of them. And if we try to persuade them that they're wrong, all they're going to want to do is prove to us that they're right and that we're wrong. So I think that we have to understand that when we're showing clients work that we have done, we have to talk more about the design. We have to talk about how that design is going to make an impact on their business. And if we don't know for sure how that design is going to make an impact on their business, then we haven't really fully done our job. We have to be able to show how something is fully differentiated from what they have. We have to understand why they want to change something. Just ask them, why are you even hiring a designer to do this? What is your biggest problem? What is your biggest challenge? What are the criteria for success? What is the criteria for success in this project? When I come back and show you my designs, what is the criteria that you are going to judge this against? If it's whether or not they like it, your odds of hitting a home run are really, really small unless you know exactly what they like. And if they can't articulate what it is exactly that they like, you're screwed even before you start. So you need to have a sense of how is this design going to impact my client's business? How is it going to improve their sales? How is it going to improve their profit margin? They're giving you money to design something for them. They're not doing that because they are investing in the future of your design firm. They're doing that because they want to use something that you are making to improve their business. And if you can show them how what you're doing is going to improve their business, and at the same time do a kick-ass, knock it out of the ballpark design, then you're really being successful. Then you're being successful.
The sort of subject that you're bringing up here, the skill set of communication and the understanding of the business scenario that you're playing in, is something we talked a little bit about last night. Last night, I should mention, we had an event for AIGA. Chicago is having Design Week right now. Mm-hmm. And yes, it was awesome. And I was honored. They asked me to be an event during the week. So last night we were at Columbia College. And we did a live broadcast for DesignChat with Art Chantry as the guest, which was very exciting and honoring and humbling to speak with him and bring him to a young college audience. It was a lot of fun. But he talked a lot about this. At length, he was talking about, if you hustle, if you work and work and work and put the effort that's required into it, the design part of your skill isn't almost as important. You know, if the people who are going to be successful, if you just want to measure success and you want to get through, you want the client to like what you did, it's about being able to communicate absolutely clearly to make that impact. And you're nailing it on the head about how much, not only do you have to understand what you did, you have to understand also how it affects your client's business.
Yes, but I think they're equally important, because I think that when you get to a point where all you want to do is please your client, where you want to just give them what they're asking for, then you're not doing your job either. Then you're just facilitating a bad idea. You have to be able to challenge them and have a type of relationship with them where they want you to challenge them, where they want to have a discussion about what is the appropriate thing to do. They think that they want design, and they do, but they also want somebody that's smart, that's going to tell them what design can and can't do, and if design can't do that, what can? What can? If your new logo isn't going to help create a real differentiation about why the company is now different, then there's no point in doing a new logo if they're not going to change anything. I mean, I think that's really at the heart of the issue and the challenges that BP is going to have moving forward. You know, they tried to get away from British Petroleum, and then they went to Beyond Petroleum, and now they've gone from, you know, up our Gulf Coast. So, you know, it doesn't matter if they have a gorgeous logo anymore, even though they do. They have one of the most beautiful logos, I think, ever created. But now, what does that represent? It doesn't represent Beyond Petroleum anymore. It represents the Gulf Coast falling apart.
I've got it. I know the change they need to make.
What's that?
Bountiful pollution.
Yeah. So no amount of design and positioning is going to be able to reframe a bad position if the company isn't going to take responsibility for their position and know that the effective design is also truthful design. And people nowadays, probably more than ever before, have very highly attuned bullshit meters. We know when we're being marketed to. And so if we feel that we're being marketed to in inauthentic ways, in ways that are going to invade our privacy, or ways that are going to inflict harm, or ways that are going to be deceitful, then I think that the company is doomed even before they design their letterhead.
One of the things I want to mention really quick, we've been going on for about a half an hour now. Those who are in the chat room, please continue to ask questions in the chat room, because we harvest those questions, and then we are going to serve those up to Debbie near the end of the chat. And, of course, give you credit for them, although sometimes I take credit if it's really good. It's true. It happens. I'm not going to lie. Because it's a good question. It's a good question.
That's right. And you're facilitating the good question.
Totally. No, I don't take credit. It's not true.
They need to know how to present themselves. They need to know how to talk about design. They need to have a meaningful point of view about what it means to be a designer now. So, for example, let's just look at the students that I teach at SVA or the students that I teach at FIT. Essentially, when we go to school, we're learning a lot of the same things. There might be different points of view that we're getting from our professors and from the books that we're reading, but essentially we're taught a lot of the same skills. Now, because design is such a subjective discipline, if we can't even agree on whether or not a Jackson Pollock is fantastic, how can we even begin to agree whether the new Hebrew National logo is a good one? I was reading on Brand New today all the reactions. So I think that one of the things that truly differentiates designers is being able to fully communicate how intelligent we are and how smart we are and how capable we are of dealing with very complex problems. And if we are not able to present ourselves as thinkers, as people that are providing value beyond the decorative, then we're only going to be as good as somebody thinks our portfolio is based on a very narrow perception of what design is capable of. So I think that being able to present your work is the second most important skill to have, the second most important skill to master as a designer. So I think we need to be able to not only talk about what we do and our belief system and our point of view, but also talk about why we've done the things that we've done that are in our portfolio, so that people do fully understand them. Okay, so somebody says that they're not a good public speaker. Okay, get training. Get training. Take a class on public speaking. It's going to be horrifying. It's going to be painful. You're going to be mortified. But I guarantee that you will come out of it a better, more confident speaker. If you feel like you don't talk well, hire a voice coach. We all spent thousands and thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of dollars on design education. Spend $500 on a public speaking class. Spend $500 with a voice coach. And absolutely practice your presentation style. I think that if you can master the art of presenting, you could probably do just about anything in your life. Somebody is saying, why should a design student join AIGA? Because of the job board, because you get access to all of the jobs all over the country that members and non-members are posting, and that's worth the price of entry. So let's see. If you can teach your non-designer friends about design, then you are very successful. Oh, yes, I absolutely agree. Do your presentation to your cat or dog. They like being talked to. That's awesome. Somebody wants to know my most embarrassing moment in design. My most embarrassing moment in design, I actually yelled at a client. And I really regret it. At the time I did it, I actually, for a moment, felt heroic, but I regret my behavior. And so I met with a client that was really unhappy with some of the work that my team was doing, that Sterling was producing, and she was talking negatively about the people working on the project in front of the people that were working on the project. And I'm like a sort of mother cub, a mother bear with her cubs. And so I got really, really territorial, and I said, don't you talk about my people that way, sweetheart. I actually said that. I actually said it, and I regret it so much now. And I don't even know, I just sort of, something came over me, and I turned into this awful, awful person, and I yelled, and I regret it to this day. Sweetheart.
You know, this is the great thing about having you on, Debbie. I can just let you go, and you could just talk for the whole hour. I wouldn't even have to do a thing.
That's what I said. You want me to be brief?
By all means, if you don't want to be brief, we will sit and listen. Because
No, I was teasing. The first bit, tell me, about my career, just to be brief. I don't know how to be brief.
One of my favorite things from your show are the beginnings where you have written something to introduce a story, or you're telling about one of your experiences or reading somebody else's story. The art of storytelling was brought up earlier when we were asking for subjects. So tell us a little bit about that, like how you made the decision to start your shows that way and what that means to you.
Well, when I started Design Matters, even in the first really gruesome episodes from the very beginning back in 2005, I didn't want to start the interviews right out of the gate. I felt that in the same way that, and I did a lot of research before I started the show. How did I want to structure the show? And I was looking at, the great talk shows. And all of the talk shows, the host always sort of put a framework around the show with some sort of introductory monologue. And so if you listen to the very, very early shows from back in 2005, my actual monologues, they weren't really monologues. They were sort of soapboxes where I sort of pontificated about design and morality and ethics, and they were just awful. And after like 3 or 4 episodes, I didn't really have any pontificating left to do. I sort of pontificated. I was pontificated out. And I, at that point, was struggling with what was left to say, and I realized that I didn't have anything to say that wasn't personal after pontificating. And so I tried my hand at framing the show with a series of threads, one from the guests that I was interviewing and what I'd experienced in the week of research that I had done on that guest. Because at that point, I was doing 26 shows a year, so that was once a week for 6 months. And so I would become immersed in this person's life as I was researching. And so I'd have a thread about the person that I was researching. I'd have a thread about what might be current at that time. And so, one show references Martha Stewart getting out of prison, so things like that. And then the third thread was something personal that I felt could then weave a sort of almost gauzy-like set behind me that people could envision. I wanted to be able to paint a picture while people were listening so that it became a very visual and meaningful experience. And so that's really how it began. I would say that most of the feedback that I've gotten has been positive about the monologues, and people have said that the monologues really move them, and they feel that they can relate, and that I'm sometimes talking about experiences that they've had as well. But I've also had people that think that they're really narcissistic and very self-indulgent, and that hurts my feelings. But the majority of the feedback, I would say 90 or 95% of the feedback that I've gotten, is that it's something that people find meaningful. So I've continued to do them. And the few shows where I haven't, I've always gotten feedback, almost as much feedback as whatever negative feedback I get from people that are upset that it wasn't there. So that is something that has encouraged me. But with Look Both Ways, my recent book, a lot of people had been asking me to publish the monologues. And I didn't want to just rehash something that had already been done. They're already out there. They're in podcasts. They're on my blog. And I felt that if I was going to take a collection of my favorite monologues, that I wanted to try to do something different with them. And because I do so much painting and illustration on my own that's not published and not part of my practice at Sterling, I thought that this would be sort of a dream come true to try to weave all of this together and create something that would be both visual as well as something that was verbal, and that hence the Look Both Ways.
So what's the current state of the show with you taking on this role in the last year, president of the AIGA, in addition to what you're doing at Sterling Brands? What's the schedule like? How is that coming?
It's been really, really tough this year to do everything that I had been doing before. And so that's why I haven't done Design Matters, which is very painful. I really miss doing it. AIGA has been a lot of work that I love, and I love almost every minute of it. And I've been really involved in Sterling's business, much more so than even usual, because of a couple of new clients that we've gotten. And so I've been extremely busy with Sterling, extremely busy with SBA, and extremely busy with AIGA. And so as a result, Design Matters has sort of taken a back seat, and I'm going to bring it back in the fall, though. So I'm going to come back in the fall.
Can't wait.
And I'm going to do a whole full season again. And they're going to be broadcast on Design Observer, and they're going to be broadcast. They're going to be taped live in the new podcast studio that is being built at School of Visual Arts as part of the branding studio. So my students will be involved in that as well. And so I'm very, very excited. The format's going to change a little bit, but the sound quality is going to be improved greatly. And I'm very, very, very excited about it. So if people have ideas for guests that they want to hear from, please let me know, because I'm really excited about that. And I'm also working on another How to Think book, How to Think Like a Great Graphic Designer. I'm working on How to Think Like a Great Brand Designer. But that probably won't be out until 2011 or 2012.
Very exciting. I'm going to flood your email box full of suggestions. I've got a list of people that, given my schedule, I'm not getting to, but I still really want to talk to. And I swear to God, I'm going to send them all your way. It's so exciting. I can't get, like I said earlier, it's liquid crack. While I'm at work and I'm listening to these things, and I'm under crazy deadlines, and there's a lot of stuff going on. Creative directors over my shoulder going, Ryan, you got to kern that. That's the wrong color. But I've got the headphones on, and I'm like, and my brain will stop. Not stop, but my hands, physical body will stop because I'm so entranced in those stories and those conversations that you are able to create. And really just, I want to thank you again for doing all of those because they're amazing and I love them, and you know that everybody else loves them too.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Vonster's here. Vonster's here. He asked about, something went by really, really fast about culture shock in New York City. So I can't see the question at this point, but I think it was something about somebody moving to New York City, and yes, there will be culture shock. But I think there's culture shock wherever you go when you move from one place to another, and there's that sort of grief and trauma about change. But the thing about New York City is you can't fight with New York City. New York City will always kick your ass. It will always win. So what you have to do is go with New York City. And don't swim upstream. Swim with the stream and know that anything and everything will happen to you. But you can be anything and anyone that you want to be. So I think New York City is the greatest city in the world, but, you know, I'm a little bit biased. But there will be a big culture shock, primarily from California to New York. I think it'll probably be pace and color palette. There was a question about, do I always wear black? Yes, I always wear black. And so do a lot of other people in New York. So that'll be a big culture shock as well.
I think now is the appropriate time to make that switch, and we're going to start taking those audience questions. So the first one tonight comes from Safar, who asks Debbie, what's your feelings on how a woman is valued in the design industry and of equality?
Big question. It's better. It's better. It's not perfect. I think that women are still not making the same amount of money, equal pay for equal jobs. I think women are making between 70 and 80% of the amount that men of equal skill and education are making. So that's unfortunate and unfair. However, there are more women now in the design business than there are men. So that is going to change. And times are changing. I took a summer intensive with Milton Glaser 5 years ago. And at that time, that was 5 years ago, he said that he'd been teaching this particular summer intensive for 25 years. And 25 years ago, in the class makeup was about 25 men and 3 women. And there I was in this class 25 years later, and it was 25 women, 3 men, and 1 man dropped out during the course of the class.
Wow.
So I think that women are, and will always be, a force to be reckoned with. I think that we tend to be more polite about things that we don't get. I think that it is still extremely, extremely hard for a woman to have it all. It's a lot harder for a woman to have it all than for a man to have it all. I feel extremely fortunate at the success that I've been able to have in my career. And people ask me how I do it. How do I do it all? It's a big question I get a lot. I'm not married. I don't have kids. I couldn't do this if I did. I couldn't. There's something really sad about that. There are women that have done both, that are enormously successful and have children, but there aren't that many of them. And I think that is something that will also change in the next 20, 25 years, but it is something that is just a fact of the way that our culture is structured. I think there's a lot less sexual harassment than there was. Almost every woman I know over the age of 40 has been at some point impacted by sexual harassment. I was very early on in my career, twice, the same job, my first job, and thought that if I didn't acquiesce that I might get fired. It was on the first day of my first job ever after I graduated. And fortunately, I figured out a way out of it, and I didn't get fired. But I still think about it. So
that's a lot to take in all at one time. I mean, it's I'm almost at a loss for words. It's sort of like taking in that perspective. I mean, I don't think it's a subject that's talked about enough. Even though we are sort of on this uptrend that, things are getting better, I still don't think we're at a point where it gets addressed enough. We're getting
Yeah,
there, but it's still a slow road.
absolutely, absolutely. I mean, one of the things that I love about being the president of an agency that has a lot of women in it is the flexibility that we try to give everybody that's there, everybody, in terms of the things that are important to life. Look who's here! It's my cat.
Oh,
Look at my cat's butt.
Hello.
Lucy. Lucy is short for Lucifer because she's a very mean cat, but she's wanting to play. Okay, she went away. So,
I actually had to shut the cats out of the office because they would do that. They would sit right here and then just block this camera the whole time because they like the heat source.
Yeah. So I think that women are certainly in a position now to be able to have more than they've ever had before. I don't think we should ever stop until we can have it all, but I think that the word all is a word that is highly interpretive. Highly interpretive. You know, common vocabulary does not always equate with common behavior. Tell my students
You always
that
find
all
out
the
the
time.
people that you always find out that the people that you think have it all down the road really didn't and weren't happy themselves.
Right. But
So
I think that in general, for anybody, male or female, if you want something, you have to work hard for it. I mean, some people get lucky and they maybe don't have to work as hard for certain things. I've never been one of those people. I'm one of those people that works a lot, works hard. I like working hard. I enjoy working hard. I don't expect things to come easily to me. I think that if we want something really, really badly, it's really a matter of when do we feel like it's okay to give up if we don't get it. If we don't ever feel like it's okay to give up if we don't get it, chances are we'll get it. You know, I think 80% of people stop trying after 2 rejections. So the more you try, the more likely you are of getting something.
good point. Good point. Vonster is asking a lot of good questions. Yes, what's the most influential thing a designer can do to expand their creativity outside of our industry?
Education. Teach and be taught. I try to do some type of educational upkeep. Every year I try to take a class. I try to take some type of educational journey that I might not otherwise, that isn't about design, or maybe is about design, because I think it's really important for designers to continue to learn about design. So I think that it's absolutely critical to keep learning. Keep learning. Ooh, do you see her little ear?
Oh, I missed it. Well, she's checking in. She's putting her 2 cents in the conversation.
Yeah.
Tone Poems asks Debbie, what's most important in a designer, their personality or their portfolio?
Equally important. Equally important if you're being evaluated on both. If you're only sending in a portfolio and you are not presenting it in person, then obviously it would just be the portfolio. But if you ever get to a place, and chances are you would be, where you're being interviewed, then personality is critical. Sometimes I think that personality is more critical. I think it depends on the candidates out there. If there are a lot of really, really great designers in the pool of applicants, then the differentiating factor is going to be personality. If there are a lot of really interesting personalities, then the differentiating factor is going to be a portfolio. One of the I maintain that the reason that Pentagram is as successful as they are is because they have people that have extraordinary portfolios and extraordinary personalities. So the people with both are the people that are going to be the most successful.
Michelle
So
Pruitt.
they're equally important.
Michelle Pruitt asks Debbie, what do you think about the combined branding of the United/Continental merger?
I think it's unfortunate, but I think that it was probably done fairly quickly. It was done to maintain a certain sense of fairness in the merger. So both companies are represented, and I think that this was in the effort of an attempt to have both companies equal in some ways. It'll change. It'll change within a year. It'll be different. I don't think it's particularly good, but I understand why it was being done, or why it is being done.
I guess from a designer's perspective, it just sort of seems compromise.
What isn't a compromise? Yeah, it's a big compromise. I think that it was done to appease two corporate cultures and two CEOs. I think that it was, if any other identity came out at that time, if any other identity came out at that time, then it would have given people looking for nuance an opportunity to say, oh, look, there's more of this than there is of this. There's more United than there is Continental. There's more Continental than there is United. So that's the future of the organization. So this was sort of a 50-50 attempt, probably done for the most part to create a sense of, and it might be a false sense, but to create a sense of security for the employees, that both companies were going to be equally valued. It's not really going to change the carriers at the moment, and it's not going to change schedules, and it's not going to change frequent flyer miles right now, when it all will be impacted eventually. But I think initially it's for the employees to be able to say, oh, look, we're both represented. That means we're not all going away. One company isn't going to be completely dissolved.
HLA or HIA, I can't tell, asks, describe a time that you got stuck and how you got unstuck.
Well, I was going through a fence and my shoe got caught in the fence, so I couldn't get out. And so what I did was I took my foot out of the shoe and then pulled the shoe out behind me.
Brilliant. It's unstuck.
How do I get unstuck? I have to stop. I have to reorient. I have to go to do something else. When I was a smoker, I used to stop and have a cigarette, and then I would go back to work and all nicotined up, and would try my hand at it again. Now I tend to multitask. I tend to do a lot of different things at the same time. So if I'm stuck, I'll stop doing the thing that I'm stuck on and try and do something else. But I'm also, a friend of mine told me this about a year ago, Michael Surtees told me that he thought I was a finisher. And I didn't know what he meant at first. I said, what does that mean? He goes, well, you like to finish things. You like to complete things. And I thought that was a really interesting insight, and it's always stayed with me because I realized that even when I'm stuck, it's critical for me to have closure and to be able to finish it. So I tend to try to push through being stuck as much as I possibly can with the idea that it's more important for me to finish it. And that often helps in just getting past the bump, because inevitably, if I'm unhappy with what I've done, even when I'm feeling stuck, just the sheer virtue of continuing forward gives me the opportunity to then edit and redo what I'd already done that was not quite as good as I might have wanted it to be.
D. Woodfork, interesting name, D. Woodfork asks, what's your favorite iPhone app if you have one?
Scrabble.
Babel?
Scrabble.
Oh, Scrabble. That's awesome.
I'm addicted to Scrabble. I play Scrabble. I'm not, people ask me, how do I do it? Do I ever sleep? Blah, blah, blah. And, I always say, and I never go to the gym. So, I'm not married. I don't have kids, and I never, ever work out. But I also play about an hour of Scrabble a day.
Wow.
So I'm a Scrabble fanatic. And so I play Scrabble all the time, just against the computer. So that's my favorite app. Although I do also love Shazam. Somebody asked how important music. Shazam is the iPhone app that takes a tag of, listens to music and tells you what you're listening to if you don't know what it is. And on the iPhone, what happens is if you Shazam something that you aren't familiar with, then it will, if it does recognize it, and I would say 95% of the time what I ask to be deciphered is something that they know, then it can take me right to iTunes and I can find that new music really quick. So I love it. I love Shazam. Shazam, and I also love the Starbucks app because then it'll tell me wherever a Starbucks is, although, that's not that hard in New York City. And I love Bloom. Brian Eno has an iPhone app called Bloom, which is basically you make music and visuals at the same time, and it's all very abstract and kind of wacky, but I love it.
That starts to bring up a subject I'd like to hit on really quick and pick your brain about.
BLOOM.
Is at Apple and their role in what they're doing in our lives as designers, and this whole issue of what's going on between Apple and Adobe and the fighting that's going on, for competing for ground and having the say in what goes here and that sort of thing. I tweeted the other day that it feels like watching your parents fight. I'm really uncomfortable with watching the bashing that's going back and forth because it heavily influences my life and my career.
Have you seen Jon Stewart's rant on Apple and the whole thing that happened with Gizmodo? And
no, I haven't.
I have to tell you, it's one of the most brilliant things. I'll have to send it to you, and then you can send it out to your listeners because it is brilliant. Jon Stewart goes on and on about Steve, how could you? How could you? You become the man. You're the man. What happened to you? You're like breaking down people's doors, and Bill Gates is like trying to wipe out the mosquito. It was supposed to be the other way around.
Oh, that's brilliant.
It's so great.
Love Jon Stewart. Love Jon Stewart.
Oh my God, it's so brilliant.
It's really disturbing, to see all the turmoil that's happening, because of how much it's going to affect our lives. And I guess the other part of the question was, what do you think about how heavily these companies play a role in our lives, and how there's this other sort of movement to get back to the hands-on creation of visual elements, and sort of where to play that line in a professional design environment?
I'm not sure of the question there. Can you help me?
Just your impressions of how the technologies are influencing not only our lives, but our professional lives, and how we could conduct business, and what your feelings are on that right now.
Well, technology will always impact us. 100 years from now, we'll look back at the time that we're in now and think that we were Luddites, in the same way that we might look back 100 years ago and not even be able to comprehend how it was possible to live without a bathroom. I think that we're living in an age where technology is helping us live better, and I think that is a great thing. Like anything, if we are prisoners to that technology instead of the drivers of the technology, then we're going to be limited by whatever that technology is capable of doing. I think that human beings are such an interesting species in that we, for the most part, tend to look at what we have and consider how we could make it better without necessarily wondering what it is we can create that might not have anything to do with what it is we have. So, for example, at the turn of the 19th century, if Henry Ford had asked consumers what they wanted in better transportation, what they would have said was a faster horse. It's up to designers to create the technologies, and a car is a technology in as much as a computer is a technology. to create things that aren't seen, those things that we don't know that we don't know. And I think that it's up to us to be able to use technology to create new opportunities and not be prisoners in whatever the capabilities of technology may or may not be. Does that make sense?
Completely. We're nearing the end of our hour here. I think we're pretty much there. So I'm going to go ahead and thank you. Debbie, thank you so much for coming on and spending all this time with us. We know how busy you are and how much you have on your plate, what you're doing with AIGA at Sterling Brands, and everything else, writing books and writing blogs and just being amazing. We love you. We love what you do, and we hope that you can come back and visit us again sometime.
Anytime. Really, this was awesome. I love how your listeners can participate, and I've loved seeing the comments, and I'll come back anytime you want. This was so great, and this is such a great thing that you're doing. And Ryan, you rock. You really do. Thank you so much for asking me to be part.
Definitely. Thank you so much. We're totally honored. And just a couple quick notes, guys. We've got a Facebook group. Please join that. On Twitter, we're at DesignChat, and I'm at Hoopajube. My name is Ryan McGovern. I'll type that in the chat in a second. But I'm going on vacation, so we're not going to do any live shows for the next 2 weeks, but I am going to be time releasing some podcasts, so please watch for that. Subscribe on iTunes, and search for DesignChat, and subscribe to Design Matters if you don't already. Debbie, anything else you want to pitch really quick before we take off? Your new book?
No, all's good. Be happy, be healthy. See you hopefully at a conference or at an AIGA event or online.
Hope so, very much. We're going to hit stop broadcasting now. Thanks for coming out, guys, and we'll talk to you soon.